Hello, my name is Ahad Hussain, and welcome to Titan Alumni Talks, a weekly podcast where we talk to alumni about their journey as a Titan and where they are today. Having been established in 1957, Cal State Fullerton is now nearing 300,000 alumni. Because we are a family of Titans, we should ask the question, who are our alumni? Join me every week as we meet some of our CSUF alumni from various industries to answer this question. For today's episode, we have Monica Chavarria as our guest. She graduated from CSUF with a bachelor's in communications with an emphasis in public relations and received a minor in human communications in 2006. And she now works as a marketing manager at Metrolink. So thank you, Monica, for taking your time and coming to our podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me today.
So the first question I wanted to hit is, what do you do at Metrolink?
At Metrolink, and I guess I should start with explaining who Metrolink is. Metrolink is Southern California's regional rail authority. It's an agency that services public transportation across 5 different counties in California. And in particular, in Los Angeles, I'm not sure if you're a commuter or not, Los Angeles and California overall has an issue with traffic. As my CEO and my CMO like to call it, it's soul crushing. Yeah. Traffic crushes our soul. And so our CEO gave us the challenge to reduce traffic congestion across all of those 5 counties. And so what we're charged to do is come up with a marketing strategy on how we can get people out of their cars and into adopting public transportation. And for me personally, and I think for a lot of Californians, that type of behavioral change is a challenge because we love our cars. I love my car. I spend a lot of time in my car, right? We listen to radio, we drive everywhere, we have fun family, road trips and whatnot. So changing the behavior is a fun, I would say it's a fun challenge because we really need to dive deep into understanding who our target is. What does that person look like? What type of mediums do they listen to, or do they watch TV? What types of digital websites do they consume and whatnot? So that once we understand what that profile is, then we can create creative messages that will resonate with them to help change that behavior and highlight the benefits of taking public transportation. So that entails a lot of research. So I work with the research department. It entails a lot of brainstorming, working with different teams and coming up with those messages. It involves a lot of strategic planning and how we would ultimately communicate those messages in what mediums, whether that's TV, radio, digital, social, or all of the above. And then also creating materials, that we can pass out at local events, that we can distribute across our agencies and across all the communities that we partner with. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. On top of that, we also have a creative agency that helps us produce the design elements and the marketing elements. And I kind of review all of those things from a creative and from a copy perspective on a day-to-day. That's kind of what I do.
I see. So there is a really big challenge trying to get people from their cars to public transportation because cars are our personal adobe, I would say, where trains and buses are good from getting from point A to B, but not from A to B1, B2, B3 in specific areas in a city. So that's where a lot of freedom comes with the cars. So I see where it is a challenge on trying to get the people to move towards safer, cleaner, and overall more efficient transportation with trains and buses.
Yes, and you hit a good point. And on top of just changing the behavior, it's that challenge of what we call the first and last mile. So how do we communicate all the different resources, like a new partnership that we have coming up with Lyft to get commuters from their home to the station and back. So that's a key challenge for us, but we have a lot of initiatives that will help support initiatives and resources. Like we have a grant that will help us add more schedules to our current schedule, add more train times and whatnot. And it's really supposed to help us get to that increased ridership initiative by 2028. And 2028 is the key date because 2028, as you may know, is the Olympics year. And so, as you can imagine, currently we have the issue of traffic, but when the Olympics comes to California, millions of people will be traveling into our state. And so we need to improve our public transportation system so that we're ready for that year.
And it's also, if you can't get us to do it right now, how are you going to get people coming from the outside to do it?
Right.
If they're seeing the people born here, oh, they're not using public transportation, why should I? It must be that it's not good enough.
Right.
And that just increases the amount of people who are driving. So you do have quite a bit of challenge in the next 9 years.
Yes,
and it's interesting to see how you're able to get as many people to do that. And I believe Metrolink changed their schedules recently. They added more lines.
Yes, and that is part of the initiative. So we added more lines to across all of our lines in October. So during this month, you'll see in the coming years that our schedules will change. We'll add rearrange the train times so that we can accommodate commuters' schedules, the everyday worker commuter and maybe the everyday just day-to-day traveler commuter.
I think the biggest issues that trains have right now is it works on a fixed schedule, and a lot of people, especially students, we don't really have fixed schedules. If one of our classes is canceled, oh, we should go home early, but there's not a train to take us. Or if we have a club meeting later at night, the train doesn't run that late, and then we have an issue with that. I feel like it's more beneficial to people who work a normal 9 to 5 and it's regular with that. So they already have like a set plan. I'm going to wake up, take this train, get to work on time, and then come back at the same time every day.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because, again, going back to better understanding who our target segment is and what that profile looks like, we have noted that students should be one of our target. And we need to come up with a way of highlighting the benefits, but not only doing that, understanding what does their day look like and how can we make those changes to our schedules, whether that may be coming up with a student pass and special times and dates that our train aligns with our schedule. But, it's all of the above. So it's part of our initiatives and part of our strategies. So something to look at definitely.
I see. So when did you start working there?
So I've been at Metrolink for a little under a year.
I see.
Yes.
So how'd you transition to that job? Where'd you come from before that?
So I worked at Farmers Insurance Group for a little over 12 years, almost 13 years, as a marketing manager. Actually had different roles at Farmers Insurance throughout the 13 years I was there.
Okay, so explain to me some of those roles. When did you first start working there, and what was that role?
I started working at Farmers in mid-2006 as I believe the title was marketing specialist or marketing consultant.
So that was right when you graduated?
And that was right when I graduated. So I was actually an intern right before that. I interned there for a couple of months, and then once I graduated, they offered me a full-time position as a marketing consultant. And I worked for the multicultural marketing department. And similar to how I feel about Metrolink today, and I'm very passionate and very excited to work there because I think it's an interesting time to make some changes across California. That's exactly kind of how I felt at Farmers. I was excited to work there because at the time, I was part of a team who helped build the multicultural initiatives from the ground up. So we were a team of 5 doing all things marketing, and that meant producing marketing materials, producing TV and radio commercials that involved a lot of research and, again, understanding who our target was. And in order to create messages that truly resonated with these people so that we can get them to understand the importance of insurance, and whether that meant home insurance or car insurance and whatnot, in their language. So it wasn't just translating everything that existed in English into another language, but truly, adapting those messages so that they resonate.
Because then with different languages, it's not just a word-for-word translation. It's the meaning behind it that needs to go through per language. So what languages did you work with in that department?
So we targeted 2 key segments. That was Hispanic and Asians. For Asians, we targeted different cultures. It was Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, and I believe that those were the top 3.
I see. So after you did that role, what did you move on to?
After that, I moved on to becoming a marketing manager, multicultural marketing manager. So I did the consulting/specialist role for quite some time, but my responsibilities changed from doing events and overseeing the marketing materials as a project manager, and then transitioning over into really developing the creative. And then I also became a multicultural marketing manager for Hispanics specifically, and that's when I really dived into the more of the production and managing the creative agencies and the strategy. So the creative strategy and what that would look like, as well as the media strategy. So I worked with 3 different agencies. One was for Hispanic, one was for Asian, and then one was for the media agency. And I was the leader at that point, I think I was there for about 8 years. So we had a particular campaign for 8 years, but then we needed to change our campaign because our segments were changing, and so we needed to change the messaging, and we needed to align with the current English language message so that, when we had, let's say, for example, a Spanish-speaking person listen to an English ad for Farmers Insurance, but because they were bilingual, they may be also watching or listening to a Spanish ad. And so both ads needed to kind of say the same thing in their respective languages. And so my job was to make sure that that message aligned nicely, but still resonated with them.
I see. So you mentioned that you were an intern in college at that time. So how did you get that internship?
Wow. Okay. So I was very involved in college, and I was on the board of PRSSA, Public Relations Students Society of America. And as part of our organization member meetings, we would invite career professionals to come and speak to the students about their career. And I remember meeting Olga Gallardo, who at the time worked at Farmers Insurance, and I connected with her, kept in contact with her, and one day she just reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in becoming an intern at Farmers, and I said yes, and I was really excited. At the time, I actually had an internship with Fleischman Hillard, who was a very, and who is today still, a very well-known PR firm. And it's interesting because I remember that I had just completed my internship with Fleischmann for 3 months. And they asked me to come back and extend my internship. And they even offered me to possibly become a full-time employee once I graduated. And I accepted. And so in my second term as an intern at Fleischmann, that's when I was asked by Olga to become an intern at Farmers. And so I was kind of torn, right? Because here I was working for a very well-known firm with the possibility of becoming a full-time employee, and then offered an internship at this very well-known corporate, insurance company.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it and seek some advice, and I, it was interesting because I was doing PR with Fleischmann, which is what I studied and what I thought I wanted to do. But the internship at Farmers was very different. It entailed PR, but not as much. So it was more marketing focused. And so I was a little scared to accept that position because I didn't know marketing. That's not what I studied. But I also saw opportunity, and so I gave it a shot. And I said, let me just, interview. It's not a guarantee, so I interviewed, and they offered me the internship, and I took it. And then when I graduated, they offered me the full-time job, and it was just a kind of a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah, because then you never know when opportunities come
Right.
and whether you should take it or not, because it's like a 50-50 shot. You could
Right.
have a good career here, and it sets the course for the rest of your life,
Right.
Because, like, say you did stay with that company, you might not have been where you are now. You might have been
Exactly.
higher, lower, at the same position. There's no way of knowing.
Exactly.
So, especially at such a young age, it is a hard decision, and it's great that you did take some advice. So, who'd you take advice from?
Well, I actually talked to my manager at Fleischmann, and
Oh, okay.
I told her my situation. She's also a Titan alumni.
Oh, okay.
And so I felt really comfortable talking to her about it, and I was very transparent. And I said, look, I know I told you that I would accept the second, term as an intern here, but I also got offered this opportunity. And she said, it's an internship. I think that you should take it because it's something different. And if it does not work out for you, then you can also, you can maybe come back.
Oh, okay.
I
So
can't
she-
repeat that.
Yeah, but she was super open about it, which is surprising because, most companies would want you to stay since you're already settled there. Because if you did leave, they would have to find another intern, train them, and get them situated all over again, which takes time, resources, money. So it's
Right.
great that she thought about it for your benefit and
Right.
not in a selfish way.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
not many people or companies do that, but it's great that that happened to you.
Yes, I was very fortunate for that.
So take me back to when you started Cal State Fullerton. How'd you get in?
So I went to Long Beach City College for the
Okay.
first 2 years. And I remember taking a career assessment there
Oh, okay.
because I didn't, like many students, right? I didn't
Yeah.
know what career I wanted to pursue. And so I walked into the career department, took the assessment, and that's kind of where I decided that I wanted to pursue communications. And so when I transferred over to Cal State Fullerton, or actually, let me step back. Once that assessment highlighted the various careers that kind of aligned with my personality, communications was one of the ones that popped up. And so once I decided I wanted to do communications, I researched all the different colleges that had communication departments. And of course, Cal State Fullerton popped up as, I think at the time was number 2 in the country for College of Communications. And immediately I told myself, that's where I want to go. And so I transferred over to Cal State Fullerton, and the first thing I did was take a class in communications just to really be sure that that's what I wanted to do. And the first 1 or 2 classes that I took, I loved. And so then I continued to just pursue that path. And that's kind of where it went.
I see. So you had a pretty straightforward path going from high school to a community college, and then, so you weren't too sure right out of high school. And
No.
I feel like a lot of students struggle with that. They go from high school and then straight into, like, say, Cal State Fullerton, and they're kind of conflicted on a few things, and they don't know which major to choose, which one would be best for them.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the career assessment, it seems pretty beneficial to a lot of students
Yes.
who are on the fence about what they want to do, because sometimes they spend a year, maybe even 2 years as undeclared.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you kind of get like an understanding of how college works, but you don't really like further your career in it unless you try and grasp at like different areas and seeing what fits.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in it. So what other clubs did you do after or before PRSSA? Was there anything at Long Beach City College that you did?
No, I think I didn't get involved in college organizations until I came to Cal State Fullerton. I've always been a very involved student, even in high school. And so the minute I started here at Cal State Fullerton, I knew that I wanted to get involved. And because I wanted to pursue PR, I got involved in PRSSA. And I also had an internship here at the Titan Athletic Department. So I worked for the basketball and the baseball team, and that was kind of where I dipped my toes into PR, but PR more of the event side of PR for the athletic department.
So what did your role consist of doing that?
Just managing the events and coordinating with, actually, for the basketball team, it was coordinating the mascot and kind of what their day-to-day would look like.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that. It was pretty fun. But I only did that for, I want to say, 4 months or so. Where I was really involved in was in PRSSA, because I was on the board for a year and a half, and I was the partnerships and sponsorships director there. And that was a lot of fun because I was in charge of making money for the organization, right? So I would outreach to a lot of companies locally and nationally to have them sponsor our events and just our chapter overall. So that was a lot of fun. And I always wanted to do something different. And I remember one summer I came up with the idea of selling popsicles, but they were Mexican popsicles called paletas. And I said, why don't we sell paletas on campus? And so I remember going to the local popsicle ice cream shop in my city where I lived, and I asked the man if I can rent his cart. So there's this cart with hundreds of paletas inside it, and so he totally was okay with it. He gave me a discount, a bulk discount to sell these, and I brought the cart over on campus, and I remembered only buying about 150 popsicles because I wasn't sure if they would sell or not, right? And so they sold in less than an hour.
All of them.
All the paletas. We walked around the campus with the cart, and people were so excited about, because it was hot, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a hot summer day, and people were excited, but some people were actually wowed, or they didn't know. They never tried a Mexican paleta or a Mexican popsicle. So they were like, oh, this is cool. Like, these are yummy, you know?
Yeah.
And it was so cool that people started to ask when we were going to do it again. And so I think I did it about 3 or 4 times to help raise money for the organization. And I believe we also came out on the Titan newspaper. We had an article on the newspaper. Yeah, so that was kind of my one innovative idea as part of a Cal State Fullerton student.
Because, I mean, like, there are a lot of clubs now, and they focus a lot on pizza and donuts. That's, like, their main thing that they do. But adding some variety in it, something that a lot of people haven't tried before, and it seemed to sell out. Like, I can't imagine 150 slices of pizza or 150 donuts in an hour. But that's really great how you were able to just take charge of it and just find something that just worked with it. So you also said that you minored in human communications. So how did you know that you wanted to minor in that?
Wow, that's a great question. I've always been a people person, and I like to engage with people. I like to make friends, and I think human communications was about that, connecting with people, understanding, who people are, why they act the way they act, and, also about being a good listener. And I didn't know exactly where that type of minor would take me, but I knew that it wouldn't hurt to just minor in something, and I wanted to minor in something that I was going to enjoy. And I have to say, all, if not many, all of the classes that I took in human communications were so beneficial to my career, because it taught me how to be just that, a good communications person, from a really understanding who that person is and how to talk to them and how to be a good listener and understand understand people as humans, right? And so really had a lot of great times and great experiences pursuing that minor.
And it seems like it's not just pertainable to your career, but also in day-to-day interactions, since the thing that tests the time is human communication. Before technology, before any of these specific fields that came through, we always communicated, and we always will communicate with one another. So even if it's not pertaining to your major, human communications is a great minor to pick up for anybody, It could pertain to literally every major. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're an engineer, a business major, working in biology, trying to get your doctorates, it just works with it.
Exactly.
And it's an interesting, even if you're not planning to do a career, just having the ability to communicate with another person and just becoming a better communicator is great for so many things. Like negotiations is one thing that I'm thinking of, or just getting to know people and moving your way up a ladder. You'll just be able to do better with it if you know how to talk to people.
And if you know how to just really understand them, right?
Yeah. So that comes up with it. And a lot of things in college, you said that it was interesting to you and you wanted to do it. And that's what college is. It's not just about getting a career from the classes you take, but it's learning. Everyone likes learning. It's just learning about something that they're interested in.
Correct.
So sometimes the only reason you don't like learning is because it's not a topic that's interesting to you in particular. So a lot of people miss out on the fact that there's a lot of classes you can take. There's a lot of things that are interesting, and you can learn about it, do well in that field. And that's what college is about. It's just about learning something new, taking classes in something you haven't tried, or just that you want to try.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that in it. So how did you end up getting your first internship? And where was it at?
So my first internship, it must have been a connection with PRSSA and one of the career professionals coming to speak at our member meetings, and again, just connecting with that person. And a lot of the times we posted internship opportunities to all our members, so we would send email blasts, and I remember seeing this one for BET for their events department, and I landed that internship. But I only did that for, I think it was event-based, so I only did it 3 times. After BET, I interned again at Titans Athletics, and then after that, I interned at Fleischmann, which was specific to PR, and then I landed my marketing internship at Farmers Insurance.
So how did you end up getting the internship at Fleischmann?
So Edna, who was the manager who hired me as an intern, she was also a Titan alumni. Yeah. So again, it goes back to being involved in school, because being on the PRSSA board was so beneficial, and just being involved overall in any organization is beneficial to any student who's seeking any career, right? Because when you're involved, that's when you're able to connect with different people, and those people are the ones that are going to ultimately help you pursue your career and just help drive your career path. And so again, Edna was an alumni who came to speak to our, one of our member meetings, and I connected with her, and she remembered me, and she offered me the internship. And so the other thing I will say too, it's important to not only attend meetings or be involved, and maybe you don't necessarily need to be part of a organization's board or just be a member, but I would advise that you really make it a point to speak to career professionals when you have an opportunity to meet them at any type of event or meeting, because that's what's going to get your foot into the door in the long run.
I see.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to work with commuting to school every day and keeping up with all of these internships and clubs and being involved on campus?
I don't even know how I managed that. It was hard. I remember long days, long nights. So I had a full-time job throughout my college years as an office assistant at an elementary school, and I commuted to Fullerton 3 times a week. So I was a part-time student.
Okay.
And I still lived at home with my parents. And coming from a background where my parents were immigrants and really hard workers, and they tried really hard to ensure that they provided shelter and food and just safety for me, I think that was very key, and that's what led me to be ambitious and independent. And I wanted to not only work and go to school, but I wanted to make them proud. And so for me, that meant doing those things and doing the best that I can. It meant going to college and just being very involved. And although it was hard, it was just something that I had to do. Going to college wasn't a question for me. It was just, I have to do it. And so as hard as it was also fun and exciting. It was a way for me to learn and to do my best, and through learning and through college. And yeah.
I see. Because a lot of the issues that students face nowadays is how do they manage commuting while also being involved, since if you commute an hour each way, then you don't really have time to stay and do clubs and be involved in all of that, since you have other things at home to focus about and just things to take care of. Mm-hmm. So what made you become a part-time student instead of a full-time student?
So that I will say, I don't think I had a choice because I worked full-time. And I will say I didn't have to work full-time, because I think my parents would have been okay with me working part-time or maybe not working at all. But it was in my nature to just be independent. And so I wanted to make my own money and buy my own things. And so that meant me working full-time and going to school part-time. So, and I was okay with that, because it was a good balance for me, even though it was hard.
So where did you work at while you were in college?
I worked for an elementary school as an office assistant.
Oh, okay.
And I could have easily said, okay, maybe I should just do this, right? Because the money was pretty good. At least I thought it was good at that time. Thinking back, maybe not as much. But, I could have just been stuck there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was nice to just have an opportunity to have a good job, good, well-paying job, and put myself through college.
Yeah, because financial independence, even though when you turn 18, you're technically an adult, technically independent, but you really don't obtain that if you're still like dependent on your parents for everything, you know?
Right.
If they pay your phone bill, pay for your gas,
Right.
pay for your car payments, then you are still under their control and dependent.
Right.
So it's difficult to manage like independence when it comes to it, especially with going to school and trying to be involved with that too. So it's interesting to see how you were able to manage all of these and just put it in its place for all of that. So another question I wanted to ask you was, is there anything you would do differently if you could go back and just change something that you did in college?
If I could, I would have probably lived closer to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because commuting was very hard. Like I said, California and LA County, Orange County specifically, traffic is bad, right?
Yeah.
So I remember commuting to and from school, and my drive was at least an hour. And sometimes I would even fall asleep driving back home. So, yeah, if I can do it all over again, I would live closer, if not on campus.
I see. Because, yeah, if you take 1 hour each way, that's 2 hours a day, and you said you commuted 3 times a week, that's 6 hours just in a car not doing anything.
Right.
Like productive for school or for work or anything like that.
Exactly. And sometimes even 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I would commute because I was so involved, right? So it was interesting times and difficult times, but definitely I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not something that you would definitely go and change. It's not like you want your entire course to be different, but it's like just like small things that like, I would have preferred to do this a little differently. Because, there are students who do commute like 5 times a week, and it gets busy.
Right. They should take Metrolink.
Yeah, you can nap on the train, you can do homework on the train,
exactly.
Study, all of that. Because that makes it a bit easier. But going back on that, it also depends on the city that you land in. Because I know Riverside, in comparison to Orange County, the bus system is very abysmal compared to Orange County. I know Orange County, you always see the buses running everywhere, but you don't really see that in Riverside. So it also depends on your starting city and your ending city where you end up with commuting and like making that possible. So with your field, how would you advise someone who's trying to get into it or has like some sort of interest in it?
I would say it's key to find a mentor as a student. That's something I didn't do. I didn't find a mentor until I started at Farmers Insurance. But now looking back, then maybe that's another thing I would, do differently.
Yeah.
Now looking back is finding a mentor. Also, I would advise that get involved earlier, obviously, is key as well. It will lead you to the career path that's right for you. And that may mean getting involved in a student organization or just attending events and meetings that are related to your career that you're pursuing. Yeah.
So how would you go about finding a mentor? Do you know like any ways for students to get involved into that?
As a student, I think finding a mentor is as simple as connecting with your professors, maybe asking them if they are open to mentoring you, or if that's something that if you think that they would be a good mentor for you, or helping you find someone that can, because a lot of professors have those connections and they can help you find that one mentor. And if not, then maybe getting involved in the organization that you're pursuing and asking them if they have a list of mentors that you can seek.
Because there are a lot of clubs, like if you are interested in the major itself, then instead of like going all in by changing your major, taking all those classes, just by going to like one or two club meetings and just seeing what are the processes behind it. Because a lot of times the clubs invite back graduates who are in the field at that time. So with that, then you can see what the work is like and how it fits with your personality and just your interests in general.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So have you ever done that so far, coming back to campus to speak at one of these clubs?
No, I think this is the first time that I ever come back on campus to talk about my career, and yeah, I'd love to do it.
Yeah, you should. There should be a way for like clubs to reach out to alumni a little better, or alumni even, since you were in PRSSA, it would be great if you were like able to reach out in like through their website or through the Cal State Fullerton website,
Right.
and just send them a message saying that you're open to doing something like that. And especially at the beginning of semesters when students are thinking about getting into their major or they just started their major, going into that and just seeing what it's like to work in that situation.
Exactly. Yes.
And there's also like big brother and big sister clubs that are happening now, where you do get someone, it's not like a mentor, but it is someone a year older than you who goes here in like your major. And so they have like a bit of an experience. Oh, this professor was good. His class is relatively easy, but you need to study for the final hard because...
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so there's things like that where it helps you get involved, especially with freshmen, since you turn 18 and it's a big transition going from high school to a university.
Yes.
Because like most of us came from like high school and then we came directly here. So it goes from you're 17 years old and you know all your friends, you have like 20, 30 friends in each of your classes. And then it goes, you're in a college, maybe a few of your friends came here, but that's it. You know, you might not see them every day, and everything is different, you know?
Right.
Because in high school, I knew every single professor, like every single teacher.
Right.
We were like, I just knew of them, I've heard of them before. But with university, I don't even know that the professors that teach these courses, and having someone above you who's taken it and who just knows the ropes would be a lot easier to help you out with it.
Yes.
So another question I wanted to ask you is, what does success mean to you?
For me, the definition of success doesn't necessarily mean how much money I make or what title I have. For me, success is the feeling of accomplishment and knowing that I've done something that has made an impact, whether that's an impact in the community or an impact within my company. And so that being said, I think success is different for everyone. And it's important that as a student or as a new career professional that you jot down what your definition of success is and what does that look like. I also think that it's going to change, right? It's going to change from the time that you're a student and from, you know, when you transition into becoming a career professional. Because I will admit that if I look back at what I thought success looked like when I first started as a career professional, I would have to say it was monetary. It was how much money can I make and how far up the career ladder can I go. But after a couple of years, then that changed for me. And what gave me true fulfillment of success and that true feeling of accomplishment was when I knew that I did something that changed, you know, either changed someone or changed the community. And a good example of that is when I worked at Farmers. Our initiative was to help, you know, Hispanics and Asians understand the importance of having insurance, because not a lot of them had insurance and not a lot of them understood why it was so important. And so for me, working as a multicultural marketing manager, that was fulfilling because I got to do something that was important to the community.
Yeah. So with all of my guests, they all say that in the beginning, their idea of success was money.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. Even me personally, right now, I am in the path of how much money can I make? How much money will I make?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of embodied into us when we think about that's why we start our careers, right? Whenever people say go to college, get a good job, why? So you can get as much money as you can to live a happy life. And that's kind of the motivator that is given to us. But as we grow, none of my guests have said that their current definition of success is money, because that's just something that comes with experience, that you realize your idea of it changes and it just evolves over time. So how have your ambitions and goals changed over time?
So for the most part, I don't believe my ambitions and goals have changed. And I know that's a little weird to say, but what I mean is that I've always wanted to learn throughout my career. So I've always wanted to be ambitious in making sure that I'm continuing to learn new things. And although I don't want to necessarily move up the career ladder and become an executive, I do want to help the new career professionals that are, becoming part of the career workforce. I want to help them get to where I am. I want to help them become, true marketing professionals. And that may or may not mean that I will also have to become a marketing manager or maybe a marketing director. But for me, it's important for me to, one, continue to learn, and two, continue to give back in a sense and share my knowledge and expertise with new career professionals.
I see. So tell me about the last book you've read.
Well, I'm currently reading Nelson Mandela's autobiography. Okay. It's a heavy read. Yeah. It's taking me a couple of months to finish. But before that, I believe I read Michelle Obama's book.
Oh, okay.
Becoming.
I see.
Yes.
So you're into reading the whole autobiographies of successful people and how they've made it to where they are.
That, and I also like self-help books. But it depends on what type of mood I am that month.
Yeah.
I just love to read in general. But for the most part, I would say if I had to pick a category, I like self-help books.
I see. Do you listen to any podcasts or no?
I do.
You do? Which ones?
My favorite podcast is Oprah Winfrey's Soulful Conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does she talk about in that?
So she interviews different people, and she just talks, those people come on to her show and they talk about their life and how they got to where they are, similar to this podcast.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's very soulful, like the title is. It helps, for me at least, it helps ground me, and it helps me become a better human overall. And who doesn't love Oprah?
Yeah. Because I'm listening to a podcast. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called Revisionist History, and it's basically about things that are overlooked and misunderstood in history. And these are 30 minutes, maybe 35, and they're super quick on different topics that just keep coming up. I'm also reading his book about, it's called The Outliers.
Oh, I've heard about that one. Oh, yeah.
It's a really good book. And so I wanted to ask you, is there any bit of advice that you would give to students?
So the advice that I would give students today is, it's a mix of just personal advice and career advice. I think today we're so focused on seeking our passion. I think for me, that whole idea of go with your passion, do something that you're passionate about, work in a passionate career. it's kind of old to me now, because I think when you pursue your passion, ultimately your passion becomes your job. And so in a sense, it will become old. So what I would advise is that not only should you focus on your passion, but just really understand what it is that you like, identify those things, and identify what your strengths are in that list of those things that you like, and then tie them to whatever is hot in the industry right now, or whatever is, very popular in the marketplace. So like, for example, let's just say hypothetically, I don't know. Well, actually not hypothetically. I think podcasts are booming, and they have been booming, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're seeking a career, let's say in events, right? And this may or may not be true, but I think there's a lot of event professionals in the industry right now. There's a lot of people that love doing events. There's a lot of events professionals. So it might be too saturated to get into that career or in that industry, but what can you do that's related to events, because events is what you like and what your strength is, that can kind of be very, can go into technology, because technology right now is popular, or like I said, podcasts are popular. So can you do an event podcast? And maybe that would be something of a mix of passion, strengths, and what is currently popular in the marketplace or in the industry.
I see. So do you have any like hobbies or passions that you do as a side?
I do. So ironically, I do events.
Oh, okay.
So on the side, I am a day of wedding coordinator.
Okay.
I've been doing that for 8 years.
I see.
And it is something that I enjoy doing. I think it is something that is one of my key strengths. But like I said, the event career industry, there's a lot of event planners out there. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily do it as a professional, but I do it on the side. I call it my vacation money. So I coordinate weddings throughout the year. At max, I do 3 weddings per year.
Okay.
And it's just something that I like to do on the side that gives me a little more money and keeps me busy, really. Yeah.
And it's something that you're interested in.
Right.
So it's like fun to do. It isn't actually like a job in the sense of you go in, you get tired, and you come back and you're just upset about things that are happening there.
Yes.
So
I can easily see myself being very tired and not wanting to do events as a professional.
Yeah. But taking it as like, just because you said you do 3 max, and that's on your own to limit yourself from overwork and, burning out with it. So did you have any of those like passions in college? Any like hobbies that you did back then?
I didn't have time for hobbies in college. I was too involved, and then my full-time job. I wish I had more time to read when I was in college. I barely had enough time to watch TV. So I didn't have it really. My hobby was being involved in college. Yes.
Because like that's a big issue that a lot of students have. They might have a hobby or a side project, but because of like the schoolwork or actual work that they're doing, they just don't have time to pursue it. And it's something that gets left on the back burner, and it's unfortunate that they're not able to make it into a career or at least have it as a side.
Right.
But it's just something that it happens, but it's unfortunate that it is like that, but there's not much with like, because we are busy as students. There's a lot of things that we need to take care of, a lot of responsibilities, and there's just so much to do that you just can't do everything.
Right.
And is there anything else that you would like to add?
The last thing that I will add is my advice to just students. Once they get into the career workforce, there's 3 things that I think are very important. And I mentioned one of them, and that is seek a mentor, and seek it up front as soon as you get into the workforce, because the first 5 years, or the first 3 to 5 years of your professional career, that is when you're going to mold yourself into a true expert in your field. And so it's important that you find someone who's going to walk you through that period and walk you through that career path. And the second advice I would give is to speak up. So my mentor, my first year at Farmers Insurance, gave me that advice, and he told me that I shouldn't ever be embarrassed to speak up, especially during a meeting, because everyone has an idea, and whether that is a good idea or not, that idea can always spark another idea, and it could be that one gem that becomes, the company's initiative or a project that will become successful. So don't be embarrassed to speak up. Even if you feel like you don't have that experience, your idea may be great. And then the third one, I would say, no one accomplishes anything alone. So, especially in the career workforce, you can't do something by yourself. There's always help, and don't be afraid to ask for it. The best projects that I've worked on are group projects. And, the projects where I felt I was the lead project manager on, and I felt that I didn't quite understand it, it was important for me to ask my colleague, hey, how do you do this? And sometimes they'll have a better way of doing it and a faster way of doing it than you do. And if you don't ask for help, then you're not going to learn how to do it better than you already know. Yeah. So I think it's important that we remember that sometimes, you can't accomplish anything by yourself.
And that's where school comes in quite a bit, because a lot of people who do know the answer, like in a class, when the teacher asks something, they are afraid to speak up. And it is good just to always just say what you think the answer is. Even if it's wrong, you'll learn from it, and you'll know how to do it better since you were participating in it. And now you're a part of the overall solution to it.
Exactly.
And with the teamwork also, there's a lot more group projects, I think, that are happening now where it comes to the end of the semester project, it's going to be a group project. Because I know in 3 of my classes this semester, 3 out of the 5, I'm in groups for all of them. And that's just how it's becoming, because in the workforce, it is a group project overall.
Exactly.
Anything that's assigned, you have to work with other people.
Yes.
And get it done as a group instead of individually.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So, and with that, we're going to end the episode here. So thank you so much, Monica, for joining us this week and sharing your experiences and wisdom with us students at Cal State Fullerton. So if you would like to connect with Monica and other Titan alumni, make sure you join Titan Pro Network, which is our very own Titan LinkedIn site. Students and alumni can connect among our Titan family to get career advice, have your resume reviewed, and even find a mentor. So join the Titan Pro Network today. If you have missed any of our episodes, check them out on YouTube by searching for CSUF Alumni, and be sure to join us next Saturday at 4 p.m. on Titan Radio for Titan Alumni Talks.